Hi, this is Stephen, and this is Astro Indicator Update. Today's date is October 8th, 2023, and this is episode 60, and its title is Vivek, Eclipse, Pluto, and the Markets. So we're going to look at the astrology of Vivek Ramaswamy, who is running for president in the Republican Party. We have a solar eclipse on October 14th coming up that is going to be very exact in the western part of the U.S. We'll look at the USA chart, in particular relative to a Pluto Station that's occurring on October 11th. And we'll look at several markets: gold, the dollar, Bitcoin, the Dow, and even the bond market, which is creating a lot of waves of concern in the financial world. So here is Vivek. He's 37. He is a successful entrepreneur in the tech industry. He calls himself Trump version 2 or something along those lines. And his chart actually has a number of similarities to Trump. And so let's just look at his chart, and I'll try to add some things that I know about his position and platform as I go along. Here's his chart, and I do not have his birth time. I did some research, couldn't find it. So what happens normally in that situation is that the time is set for noon. So we do not know the position of the planets relative to the houses in his chart. It would be nice to know that. But we can look at the aspects between the planets and get a lot of insight to his basic personality and character. So right off the bat, we can see that, Vivek is a Leo, 3 planets in Leo. Here we go. Mars, he's a great communicator. Mercury is close to the sun in Leo, so he knows how to present himself. The Mars position, Mars rose in the eastern horizon on the day that he was born, and normally that particular planet, whatever it might be, if it's somewhat close to the sun, carries a lot of weight and is usually expressed strongly in a person's chart. In this case, it's Mars. So he is dynamic and very motivated and very assertive. And you could call him, he's kind of a classic warrior in many respects. And he sort of shares that with Donald Trump, because Trump has Mars on his ascendant. In this case, the positioning is different, but Mars is similarly aspected in Vivek's chart. So what else is going on here? This combination of planets is opposite Jupiter. So again, Trump has a fairly strong Jupiter. Jupiter trines his sun. In this case, it's opposite the sun. So there's more of a need, to express Jupiterian qualities, which are, being positive and optimistic and kind of philosophical in one's approach. And that does show up. He has very strong principles, we could say, and he has a lot of fixed elements in his chart, which makes him a very strong personality. So Moon is in Taurus, Sun is in Leo. You kind of get the picture there, and he's got an Jupiter in Aquarius, all fixed signs. Okay. So he is a very strong-willed person who doesn't really like to compromise, but he is not likely to be influenced very easily. And that's sort of one of my main points I wanted to make today about him. Now, his conservatism does show up with a Saturn opposite his Moon. And this is, gets expressed within his personality in many ways. But, Saturn in this context would indicate someone who does respect more traditional values, family values, the Constitution, things of that nature, law and order, and so forth. And so when he talks about those things, that is his genuine personality speaking, I think. So you can kind of see that in his chart. So what else are we up to here? He's got Uranus, which is down here at 14 degrees Sagittarius, and it is trining this core constellation here up in Leo. So this is, I think, a very positive thing. It continues to lend itself to someone who is very strong-willed, okay, and recognizes that some of their ideas are going to be unusual or unorthodox, and he's not afraid to express those ideas. The Uranus maybe more on the plus side, the Uranus energy can be open-minded though, and open to new ideas. He even identifies himself as being somewhat of a radical, and that is a term that one would use for someone with a very strong Uranian energy, which he has. This energy is also opposite Chiron, and so he's got this sort of triangle going on between these three areas of his chart. And in this case, running for president, I think he would radically want to change the economy. So I think one symbol for Chiron, in addition to relationships and marriage and things of that nature, it deals with economics. So he would bring some new ideas to the table when it came to economics, I do believe. Okay, moving down our list, he has Venus, interestingly enough, I think here, Venus in Cancer. But it turns out, when we start looking at the USA chart, this Venus is at the midpoint between the Sun-Jupiter conjunction in the USA chart. So there's a strong affinity he has with the US, and so there's just a strong identification with the US. And so even in one of his platforms is that he talks about bolstering. When I'm looking at my notes here, he talks about reviving the American national identity. And so this is perfect. His Venus is conjunct basically the U.S. identity of the Sun and Jupiter. And so I found that quite interesting. And so North Node in Taurus. And so that accents, again, his moon, his concern for, the family in his platform, and kind of a practicality in his nature. So let's move on and briefly look at his transits. His main transit, I'm taking a little bit too long here, but his main transit that's taking place this year and next year is that he has Uranus essentially conjunct his moon by transit. Okay, so this is a change period for him in many respects, and his own self-identity, self-image, and so forth is being altered over these next 2 years. This transit, interestingly enough, is also squaring his Mercury, particularly right about now and over the next few months. And so he is expressing kind of radical ideas in some respects, and it's very timely for him to have that voice, because in his declination, so you look at transits, and I can display the transits in this outer ring right now, but another way of kind of looking at a certain period of a person's life and telling what's going on is to look at what are called declinations. I won't go into a lot of that, but on the level of declinations right now, he has Uranus parallel Jupiter. Okay, and this is a slow-moving transit, just like this one is over here, relative to declinations. They're both slow, but with declinations, with Uranus parallel Jupiter, that is very positive and helpful for him when he's trying to affect the masses and speak to the masses. And so he has a lot of things going for him, actually. But I wanted to emphasize that, what you see is sort of what you get with Vivek. He can seem brash, I think, to many people, and exceptionally sort of polished. But he knows how to present himself, essentially, and he is as assertive in many respects as he seems, because I see it in his chart. Okay, let's move on. On October 14th, we have a solar eclipse, which is going to be fairly exact in the western part of the U.S. And so if you know your chart, this eclipse is at 21 degrees Libra. And even though the thinking on what eclipses mean has changed over the hundreds of years of astrology, it can amplify or magnify something in your chart if you have a personal planet near this position. If that planet is not functioning well for you, and maybe the negative qualities of that planet are being expressed more often than not, then that could possibly exacerbate things for a number of months afterwards. So it's sort of good to know when you have solar eclipses coming up and what the degree is. So that happens on the 14th. Okay, U.S. chart, which I've done many times because so many heavy things are going on in this chart. I've set up the transits here for October 14th, the day of the eclipse, because on that particular day, we have, here's the eclipse right here, sun, moon together. Moon is going to be blocking the sun. We have it opposite Chiron. And as I was mentioning, I think earlier, one meaning of Chiron deals with the economy. So there's going to be really a focus on the economy here, even more so over the next few months is my bet. Okay. In addition, which I've spoken about frequently, is that the U.S. has been going through this Pluto transit. Okay. However, Pluto goes direct on the 11th, and this is as close as it's going to be in this conjunction period for a long time, over 100 years. Let's leave it at that. So the intensity of this particular, this particular conjunction symbolizes, the intensity is hitting its peak here, let's say over the next month or two. And so I've talked about what this may mean, but it is revealing and disclosing and uncovering sort of these really dark, evil elements in our world that can be horrifying to discover. And you can fill in the blanks there yourself, but a lot of the corruption that we see in the world, manipulation of the markets, of the press and so forth, I attribute it to the kind of the disclosure of all that is coming out now, and I see that represented by this particular conjunction. Fortunately, it's slowly ending, and we're going to see Pluto start moving along and moving away from this particular position. I don't know why that happened, but but over the next 2 months it's going to be fairly intense because it's sort of exact again. Okay, so that's the Pluto conjunction. We have Neptune here. There's Neptune in the chart. It is basically, we've had a Neptune opposite Neptune going on for a good long while. it has been difficult to perceive the truth at times in our world because there's so much deception and the subversion of the truth. And I see this coming to a close and improving slowly over the next 6 months or so, thank goodness. And we have Saturn down here coming back somewhat close to our moon in the U.S. chart. It comes back to 0 degrees, goes direct in November, gets within 4 degrees of the moon. But that's enough to be expressed in, again, the economy maybe slipping into more of a recession in the short term. But here again, if we look out 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, there's a good possibility that sort of the negative energy around our economy may start lightening up a little bit, okay? And then, I know this is a lot of astrology, but we have Uranus essentially squaring the moon that will continue into next year. And this is going to create some changes. Whether it will be chaotic changes, rebelliousness, revolution, but that energy will be in the air, and the need for change is just going to get, heightened next year. That's it. So I won't continue. I know this is a little bit too much astrology. This is. I made a mistake. This should be, say, monthly chart up here, but this is the 20-year Treasury bond chart. Monthly chart, so every bar represents a month. Not normally I display a daily chart. So this goes back 20 years. You can see 2003 up to our current date. You can see that the bond market has essentially just, crashed during that period of time, and this has to do with the Federal Reserve raising rates and people selling their Treasury bonds, whether that means in the U.S. or in other countries. But when this happens, when you see a drop in the bond market, that means the interest rates are going up, and that affects so many things in our life, in our economy. It affects our credit cards, our mortgage rates. How much money you have to pay on your debt, whether you're an individual or corporation or a country. And so things tend to start slowing down because the the cost of money or the cost of servicing your debt goes up and up when this occurs. And recently, people have really flipped out because over the last few months, this bond market has been dropping like a rock. However, I kind of see it as being maybe a point where we're going to stabilize a little bit right here. But it's come down so much that this is going to work its way through the system and affect everybody. And so probably a bank is going to go under because they have bonds that have been affected by this in their portfolio. And it's going to affect, corporations and so forth. However, when I look at other markets, I see that there's a possibility here that that this may stabilize at least for a few months or so. And I can see this because a lot of markets had a bounce, and they had a bounce that not only just one day, but this is a chart from my website, my astroindicator.com website, and it looks like chaos in itself, but all the vertical lines deal with the astrology of this particular market. And so I can look ahead and I can say, something significant is going to happen on one of these dates, or a market responds just to a technical level, a support level, like this level right here. And so this was a support level, getting a bounce at that level makes sense. However, when you see a significant astrology date approaching, you're going to amplify a move. And so I wouldn't be a bit surprised if this market in gold really starts moving higher in about a week, where this red line is. And the fact that we got a bounce on Friday also tells me that this bond market craziness may slow down a little bit. So I see the same thing in other markets. So in silver, this is a silver market. It's got its own astrology, though these vertical lines are forecasting important dates. And in the silver market, what happened is that a number of these lines occurred, right as it is bouncing, and it's probably affecting the gold market. So not only did silver come down to a support level, but it had two of these, what I call astrodates occurring right here. And so we're getting a bounce in silver. It showed up in, a lot of mining stocks and so forth. And the advantage, to emphasize the point, is that I knew that these dates were coming up. And it was highly likely that we were going to get a bounce, and I could see it, beforehand, just like I know something's going to happen up here. So the U.S. dollar has been on a tear for a number of months, going up because they've been raising interest rates. However, the bond market rates continued to go up recently, but the dollar has started to drop. So it is way overbought. And just from a technical level, I can see down here that, it's overbought. And to point out the benefit of the astrology, I could see that this red vertical line right here is often a point where you get a reversal in a market, particularly a market that is overbought. So this doesn't surprise me at all that the market is reversing today. And so it's kind of following my expectations. I think this market's going to come down until we get to these lines out here, which are later in the month of October. Okay, here's Bitcoin. Bitcoin has responded. There's intermarket dynamics. Sometimes, like gold and silver affect each other, influence each other, their markets, and Bitcoin and Ethereum influence each other. And so that has to be taken into consideration along with the technicals as well. But Bitcoin has broken out above the 50-day moving average, which is very positive. It's broken above some support and resistance levels, trend lines, and on this particular astrology date, which it shared with Ethereum, was the date that it broke through it broke through the 50-day moving average, and then within a couple days it broke through this trend line. So it performed much like I thought it would perform. Energy was kind of added to that date, particularly because it shared that date with Ethereum. And now we're on a rally. We're getting a little bit overbought, so it could trade sideways. But we have a number of strong astro dates coming up where I think this market is going to move higher. And do I have any more here? Dow Jones. Okay, here's another example of an oversold market. Okay, you can get a little education in technical analysis. This is the RSI. It's an oversold area. Usually you're going to get a bounce of some sort. Okay, but in addition, we had an astro date right here. And I knew it was coming up. It didn't surprise me that this market was falling up until that date, and now we are getting a bounce. And we have another fairly strong astro date coming up next week. So this rally in the Dow is likely to continue. It may come up to this zone, up in sort of this area here. And then we'll have to see how things play out, particularly when we get down the line in about a month. We have a reversal date. This red line is a reversal date. So anyway, if you're interested in subscribing, astroindicator.com, I do 5 markets. I usually forecast and project astro dates out about 45 days. And again, it's a supplement. You incorporate it into your own trading style to see when significant trading dates are approaching. So that's it for today. I've been researching financial astrology for 25 years. I have a master's degree in psychology. I do individual consultations relative to astrology, even stress management. This is my email. This is the website I've referred to, astroindicator.com, and I do accept Bitcoin donations. And if you liked this information, please subscribe or click the like button or leave a comment. I always like to hear your comments. But I'll probably do another one of these in 2 or 3 weeks. I'm a little sporadic, but maybe we'll get back and we'll look at Trump's chart with all his legal problems in the next episode. But thanks for listening, and bye for now.